I just read this piece last night, and it set me off. No one is trying to stop people from playing sports. You just play sports with the sex assigned at birth. I really come back to one point they're making. You bad, me good. That's what it comes down to.
The awful announcing piece, where I guess you would call it sucking up to Katie Nolan, is sucking up for an argument that she's making or an attack. That's the opposite of what she's talking about on her own show, right?
Yeah, so Brendan Clean is the writer of the article at Awful Announcing. We name names here, so I'll name the name. I just read this piece last night, and it set me off. I was irritated by it because the perspective of it is totally one-sided.
Yeah.
And it's an article and an opinion piece that is bemoaning the fact that too much of media is short-sighted or one-sided when it comes to issues of race, identity, politics, everything else, that everything is just completely slanted in this one side. And that's sort of what the half-cocked rant from Katie Nolan was trying to describe, that she's tired of it, and she wants more nuance when it comes to any debate around transgender people and sports and inclusivity and where they compete or where they don't compete.
Specifically this.
Specifically
just this one issue.
Specifically Simone Biles going after Riley Gaines and her defense of Simone Biles.
Here is Katie Nolan.
And it's that important to you that you also don't let them play sports? You are attacking a very vulnerable community very maliciously. And it's so obvious to me that it's wild it isn't obvious to everybody else. I don't know how you go to sleep at night talking the way that you do about children. Anyway, the main point of that is you cannot claim to be protecting women's sports and tweeting the photo of an abuser at the person he abused and who's a female athlete. You just can't. So there goes that argument. Come up with something else. You're not protecting women's sports. Simone Biles is.
That's not protecting women's sports?
I don't know how Simone Biles is protecting women's sports.
You can't go to sleep at night because of what you're doing. I mean, that's exactly how Riley Gaines and others feel, the majority feels, that are having to compete against males. And it's not just children. It is, but it's not just children. It's this issue that, in regards to the discussion about why is it so short-sighted? It's one-sided. In this particular case, it's not. It's really not that one-sided, or one side versus one side. The majority don't agree with it.
The vast majority.
The vast majority. And in the media, it's the how dare you? Because of the response always has to be no, more inclusivity. Because because of the taking spots from women, you can't have both. You can't be about the right for women to have to have the same thing that men, and then have a male come in and take the spot. We've been through this, and it's pretty common sense stuff. And then right after, around this is when we see the apology.
Well, and we'll get to the apology from Simone Biles
it's
too.
Almost.
But I want to break it down sort of piece by piece from this awful announcing piece and what Katie Nolan is saying. And I want to be as respectful as possible to anyone who may have a different opinion than I do about this, or a different opinion than the vast majority of Americans have on this issue, which the vast majority of Americans have the opinion that men should compete against men and women should compete against women. Now, separate of that, one thing that Simone Biles said in her initial post was, why don't you start to petition for a third category where transgender people could compete against transgender people? We had Senator Tommy Tuberville on. He's not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that. I don't really care. I don't know if there's a giant demand for that. But here's what I don't want. And here's what Katie Nolan is missing the point on. She's talking about you're trying to exclude people from sports. Here is Simone Biles wearing the white hat, riding in on the white horse, to save everyone with inclusivity. And here you are, big, bad Riley Gaines. All you want to do, it's not heroic to try to ban people from sports or not allow them to play sports. No one here at OutKick, and Riley Gaines included, no one is trying to stop people from playing sports, whoever wants to play sports. You just play sports with the sex assigned at birth. Or sports somehow comes up with a system where transgendered individuals can compete against each other in individual sports or team sports. That's what we're advocating for. But more than anything, and this is where Riley Gaines comes in with her fight, and I'm not going to speak for Riley. She's spoken about it a lot. She is on the side of protecting women's sports. When you say Simone Biles is protecting women's sports and not Riley Gaines, I'm having a hard time understanding your point, because regardless if you like the way Riley Gaines does it or what platform she's on or whatever you want to say about it, she is the one trying to keep men out of women's sports, which is protecting women's sports.
And protecting the future, but also the present. Like the idea that it's over, the argument for the mental health. No one is saying that they shouldn't have the same American rights that we do as Americans. Like that, to me, that's almost in some cases, it's like, how dare you? You're taking away their right to play sports. No, they're not. They're not asking for that. Riley's not. You can play sports. I mean, play with the gender that you're supposed to be playing with. Don't be playing in women's sports. Here's the other thing. She tweeted that Riley was truly, she said that Riley was truly vile, and then tweeted it. Chad, you and I just listened to Riley with Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith podcast. And he asked her about this. And we'll paraphrase, but she said, well, hang on, the comparison with Vassar, you got to remember that
Nasser.
Nasser. Yeah. You got to remember that a man changed in the female locker room in front of all of us, and no one did a thing about it. Now, I would think that if that happened with any woman, Katie Nolan, that's not vile to think that it's just I don't think they realize that they're not getting the full picture here. What really, it was more than just in the pool. And in the pool, he went from 400th to tying Riley Gaines for the national championship.
Yeah, so what Katie Nolan, reading the piece, and I've read through it 5 times now, trying to understand exactly where she's coming from. Because I want to understand this, and I want to understand whatever this other side is so I can properly argue my point on this side. She's saying that this whole conservative movement, right-wing media propaganda, equating transgenders to rape, right? That's the boogeyman, she describes it as. This whole boogeyman false narrative that Riley Gaines keeps throwing out, that they're going to invade locker rooms and bathrooms and there's going to be a rape threat at all times. I thought Riley handled that question very well from Stephen A. Smith. And look, it's a jarring sight. When Riley Gaines posts a picture of Simone Biles next to Larry Nasser, she knows what she's doing. She knows probably what the implication is. I thought she clarified it well, saying that, yeah, of course, Larry Nasser is a terrible person, and what Simone Biles and her teammates and a lot of other women went through is awful, and he should spend the rest of his life in jail. Now, also, on the other side of this, I am someone who was a young woman in a locker room that was forced to take a shower next to a fully grown man with fully grown male genitalia right next to me looking at me. That was an invasion, right? That was a violation of what the rights of a young lady should be. And I agree with her. And
Yes.
Stephen A. Smith didn't disagree with her also. So I don't think that's taking that and saying, okay, this is the exact same as what Larry Nasser did to all these young women. I don't think she's saying that at all. It's simply an example of you of all people should know how awful these things can be and how things can escalate. And then Katie Nolan took that. All this talk about Katie Nolan wanting a nuanced discussion about everything. Hutton, when I hear her words, and I even read the words of the guy who wrote the piece at Awful Announcing, I really come back to one point they're making. You bad, me good. That's what it comes down to. I don't like you because you're on a website I don't like or approve of. I don't like you because you vote for and support people that are Republicans that I don't approve of. And because of that reason, I'm going to take the side of Simone Biles, who I believe represents what I'm about more than what you're about. So Simone good, Riley bad. Me good, you bad. That's the fundamental argument that we make all the time in America about the other side without really discussing what's going on. Because, Hutton, even Katie Nolan, while she doesn't outright say it, and reading the transcript of everything she said in this half-cocked rant, she does not think that men should compete against women. She's not advocating for the young person in Minnesota to be winning state championships.
It's that she does. Well, she's not advocating, but
not in girl sports. I'm saying,
but she's saying stop being so, angry and mean to people. And it's like in reverse. Yes, it's a jarring picture with Simone Biles and Nasser side by side.
Yeah,
but not on the same shelf here. Okay, but no one looks at this and thinks, oh yeah, that's inappropriate. Let's just go to inappropriate.
Well, let me
in the locker room. Just to look at it from that angle, it's the opposite. They identify, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But how would you expect the women to respond?
Let's go directly to the piece here with some of the things that are argued, okay? More broadly, this is from the writer of the piece now. More broadly, conservative politicians have made anti-trans rhetoric a key part of their platform. Okay, keep that in mind. They've made anti-trans rhetoric a key part of their platform.
Right.
So now we've taken protecting women's sports and keeping men out of women's sports as somehow anti-trans. It's not anti-trans. It's anti-transgender people that are men competing against women with a biological advantage in sports to help protect the sanctity of women's and girls' sports and to help keep it fair. That's not anti-trans.
Well, Chad,
but this writer is saying anti-trans.
Why does it have to be anti? Can it be pro-women?
Right. And again,
you could flip it.
I'm just giving you how this whole thing is shaded.
But I know. But from no one wants to look at it from the pro-women angle.
Yeah.
Including right here.
And look, almost every media outlet other than OutKick and others, they would write it in this same coloring. They would shade the article the same way.
Right.
It continues. In February, President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at banning transgender women from competitive sports. That's not necessarily true. The goal and the aim is not to ban transgender people from playing sports. They can play sports at their assigned sex. Now, if there's another third formation of a division, fine.
Right.
Have that discussion. Again, how this is being shaded, though, banning transgender for women from sports. As you said, not pro-women, not protecting women and girls' sports, which is really what's happening, but it's that. Removing Title IX protections from transgender women at federally funded schools and tasking the Department of Education with investigating violations. They continue. For the most part, when this issue has risen to the mainstream, it has been owned by voices who want to keep trans athletes out of organized sports. Let me speak as someone now, personally.
Yes.
I'm giving you my opinion as someone who is on a show for a media company and a website that this writer is saying it has been owned by voices who want to keep trans athletes out of organized sports. Brendan Clean is talking about me right now and about us. I am here to tell you, I am not aiming to keep transgender people out of sports. I want any transgender person that is playing sports now to continue playing sports if they so choose. The goal here is to not include them in girls and women's sports, throwing a disproportionate amount of testosterone and physical ability against women and girls. And in doing so, we protect the sanctity of women's sports. It's not to keep transgenders from playing sports. That is what I want to make very clear, and that is what this article is trying to argue. They go on. A recent NBC News poll saw 75% of respondents state that transgender women should not be able to compete in female sports, which is basic common sense. And I would argue that number is probably even higher than that, 75%. Quote, and this is from Katie Nolan now, Hutton, it's a bunch of media companies who also participate in this and send their followers to attack high school kids. Now, I don't know if this is a jab at OutKick sending Amber Harding to Minnesota to cover this event, or the 5 people that protested it that Amber had nothing to do with in organizing that protest, or they're claiming that OutKick or other media companies are encouraging people to attack these transgender teens online. It's just simply not true. And then Nolan questioned how Riley Gaines sleeps at night, which Riley, to her credit, with a very funny response, said, I sleep great, just fine, no problems. So I just, we keep getting back to the same issue here, Hutton, that I feel like even Katie Nolan, if hit with truth serum, because she doesn't explicitly say, boy, I'm all for, I was rooting for the pitcher in Minnesota to win that state title against those girls. Not saying that. And not even saying that biological men should compete against women. She's saying we need a nuanced discussion about how transgender individuals can compete in sports, but not that men should be competing against women. I think that we're mostly all on the same side, but it gets to this me good, you bad argument at all times.
And that's all it can be. From that
gets
angle,
old.
You can't have a conversation. There must be an argument. But in this case, there's no argument to be made. Yeah, like they don't. There's no. Take a step back and just look at the stats, the facts, the dominance that you see. Why separate by gender if we don't separate by race, sexuality? But why separate by gender? Because it's true. It's men don't need to be competing against women, and it's so just. What's jarring is the way that it's overlooking the whole reason why it's an issue to begin with. Chad.
Well, it's so true that Simone Biles eventually apologized.
Well, apologized for going after.
Yeah, getting personal.
Getting personal with Riley.
Gaines.
But I'm thinking to myself, like, here's this apology, which is fine. And Riley accepted her apology. But we on Monday, I'm thinking, Simone Biles is representing women's sports at the highest level. The greatest athlete, dominant. And
which Riley acknowledged.
Yes. And those are the women, like Riley, who have to be on the side of women's sports for all the work and effort they put in. And you're seeing at the Olympics the gender being discussed and whether or not it's going to be allowed. And boxing, I don't know, and I mentioned the timing of that too, like for this post versus the others.
Yeah. It's
all very strange, and then you end up with the apology, but it's still not taking the stance of we're pro-women. They're anti-trans. This is about being pro-women. And I think that's the flag to carry here.
But I keep going back to even Simone Biles agrees with Riley Gaines, whether she explicitly says it or not, that men should not be competing against women. Here's the line that stuck out to me. This is from her apology, I was not advocating for policies that compromise fairness in women's sports. In other words, she's not advocating for Tim Waltz in Minnesota, saying that the male should compete against women and pitch in the state tournament in softball. What she's saying is, my objection is to be singling out children for public scrutiny in ways that feel personal and harmful. I don't know that Riley Gaines is doing that. I don't think she's doing that. I know my issues, Hutton, are with the people in charge that allow it. That's my biggest beef. It's not with the child.
Right.
It's with the fact that the child is allowed to compete in that category, which should not be allowed.
And by not taking advantage of the pedestal that some are on, you're not hearing that movement. But you're right. She's saying, like, I'm not taking the stance that it should happen. I'm not seeing the stance where it shouldn't.
Yeah,
that's my point. That's not happening. And
all the silence too. Like, you could. I'm not here to tell people what their causes should be, but I just wish Simone Biles would have just stayed out of it, other than doing what she did.
Well, okay, I totally agree. Speak your truth, but
she just doesn't like Riley.
She doesn't believe. That's right. That's the truth.
That's the truth of the matter. She hates that Riley Gaines is famous because of this.
And if you're going to go after the high school, the kids, Go on the Title IX tour that we were part of. There were high school girls that were going to college that were speaking their truth. And if you listen to them, they'll tell you what it's like to compete against a boy. And their truth is backing exactly why they shouldn't be competing against girls or women. It's just, it's really sad seeing some of it, man. Especially just it sounds like it's just stop bullying. And
stop bullying while, by the way, I come back and bully you by saying you look like a dude.
Right.
And that's what she eventually apologized for with Simone Biles. And look, good for her for having, at least stepping up and apologizing.
Think about how
when she really didn't have to, but she should have, and she did.
This isn't about the one. It's about, to me, the many that Riley and others took a stance for. Girls and women, thousands, in competitive sports that are having to compete with what we're seeing. And they're, at the beginning, it was like, it doesn't happen that often. But I mean, this has been a huge discussion for how long now? And here we are, still split. But we're not really split. That's that's weird to me. It's not a split.
It's not split at all. It's overwhelming majority. The split, Hutton, is this.
But the public.
This 50-50 nature of the complete love of Donald Trump and the Republican Party with the complete hate of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And all Simone Biles sees with Riley Gaines is a woman who became famous because of her stance and because Donald Trump and the Republican Party helped amplify that. So even if what she's saying is something I 100% believe in, which honestly, I believe Simone Biles and Katie Nolan deep down agree with the core principles of what she's saying. Katie Nolan, Simone Biles, and others, they're saying, I can never agree with you because you're aligned with Donald Trump. So I hate you for that reason. Again, me good, you bad. Let me show you all the ways you're bad because you're targeting children now when you do this. Give me a break. Like, either stay silent on it the way you have been if you don't want to seem like you're aligning with one side or the other, but don't do that.
Speaking on behalf of, she's actually speaking on behalf of many.
Right.
And listen to their stories. If you don't want to listen to Riley, listen to their other stories.
Well, and think about all the people
nuts,
that agree with Riley that she's probably heard from that haven't said anything publicly, too. I mean, how often do we hear from people at ESPN that disagree with things that ESPN does, but they can't say it, right? They're never going to say it, or they don't want to be seen as someone who's saying
in any line of work.
It's sad that everyone just can't. Hell, Stephen A. Smith completely agree with Riley Gaines and what she's arguing for.
Yeah, I don't think, but that's right. Stephen A. Smith, he thinks for himself.
Yeah.
And he does the background. He listens. He watches. He digs on stories that he's going to be discussing.
Yep.
And in this case, it was just you're vile here. Well, I mean, listen to the story that's behind what she's saying because she explained it with Stephen A. And on her show, on her podcast. Go check out Games for Girls, which is available. OutKick YouTube channel and at OutKick.com.
All the argument that Katie Nolan makes and Awful Announcing makes that, there's this cottage industry of people aligning with one thing because it gets the popularity and views and this and that. I mean, what is Katie Nolan doing that's different with her podcast? Like, it's just another side that I'm going to align with this regardless of what I believe. And what people that watch or listen to this podcast want is me bashing Riley Gaines because they hate Riley Gaines. And I do get sick of this. And look, we know Riley. This has nothing to do with me knowing Riley. I get sick of this. Now let's tear down Riley Gaines' athletic career because we disagree with her on this stance, or we disagree that she likes Donald Trump. I hate that. Like, everybody's like, you're such a sore loser. Well, she tied. And
she didn't
also, come on. Like, that's just...
She didn't lose.
I hate that tired, sad argument of... This is the loudest second place loser I've ever heard from in my life. Like, shut up with that. You want to talk about bullying and
second place loser to the 400th ranked swimmer,
not being inclusive and not this and that. Like, that's the exact same stuff that people that want to say and preach against that, they're doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
So stop it.